And welcome everyone who's joining, and welcome again to all the guests. We are kindly ask your cooperation due to a technical issue. Your names have been misspelled. We apologize for this inconvenience, and we ask you to please rename yourself in the participant list in Zoom. Thanks a lot for your cooperation. And I welcome once again to this session, to the TOM Training Management System dedicated session. We are spending the next 30 minutes introducing you this tool, which is a side event of the 44th general session of the European Commission for the Control of Foot-and-Mouth Disease. And the purpose of today is really to show you how this TOM training management system tool works. During the session, my name is Marcello Nardi. I'm working in the learning team of the European Foot and Mouth Disease, and I will be joined by Leah Seabrook.
Good morning for me here, and good afternoon to you. I hope you'll find this very useful before you move into your last day of the 44th general session. So thank you for taking time to see what we've been working on. We hope it's something that'll be of interest and you'll be able to see value of it within your organizations.
And that said, I would suggest, with no further ado, to move to the presentation of this tool. We are planning to really no more than 30 minutes to allow everyone who's wanting to join the last day of the 44th general session to join. The general session is starting in 30 minutes from now, so we want to have a very quick presentation. During the very first 20 minutes of this slot, we are going to show you what is the purpose of the training management system, what we are developing, what we are working upon. And we will dedicate the very last 10 minutes to your questions you may have. You have a question and answer button in your Zoom interface. You can raise any question via that feature, and we will promptly answer those at the last part of this meeting. So I'm going really to present you the tool, what is the tool is about. For training management system, we have basically a tool which is made by two parts. We started developing a web-based platform which has the purpose to do what? To support the veterinary services in tracking completion of trainings of the veterinarians. And we heard the need that veterinary services need to ensure a consistent tracking of the trainings for single veterinarians, and we wanted to include another key component, which is this competency framework that we started working upon, and my colleague Leah Seabrook will speak more in the next few minutes. Those two parts, creating a web-based interface that we all know after the current pandemic is now becoming crucial to have one single electronic database for that, combining that with a competency framework as the purpose to do what? To allow basically to assess the current level of veterinarians. So we want to use the training management system to understand how proficient the veterinarians are according to a reference framework, which is our competency framework for this example. And what is very crucial, we understand from the needs of the veterinary service, from the point of view of the veterinary service, is identifying what are the gaps. So being able to identify whether a person is proficient or not in a specific competency framework, a specific competency, can eventually pave the road to create learning programs and to apply the learning programs. In this case, we are speaking about the fast diseases domain, and we are wanting to focus on our programs, but we are planning to use to create a tool which is flexible enough also to identify multiple multiple individual development programs. And ultimately, and we are going to show you in our interface, our web app in the next few minutes, it is crucial for veterinary services to be able to monitor the progress of the veterinarians. So to understand among those veterinarians who are able to meet specific requirements and to track the capability improvement for specific roles. So to have aggregate information. And let's not forget that this, combining this with a competency framework, so combining multiple trainings within a specific competency domain, represent a recognition, an added value for the single veterinarian. So in other words, we are developing an interface that will allow the country veterinary service to monitor the progress of the individual veterinarians. At the same time, we are developing competency frameworks that indicates the map for the development of the veterinarians. And one crucial point here that is anticipating what Leah is going to show you in the next few minutes is that those competencies are behaviorally anchored. So we want to not to focus only on the learning component, but on the behaviors that we expect people to apply after they learned something. We are focusing on creating a platform that integrates different learnings from different platforms potentially, and to include a quality system in the TOM, so to ensure a consistency of the learning. And before I hand it over to Leah, I want to show you quickly what is the life cycle of the TOM. Let's put this example. We have a veterinarian who's proficient, who has been identified, for a specific role. We want to be able, from the veterinary service perspective, to identify what are the current competencies, what is the current level of the single veterinarian, to apply a map to those existing knowledge, and to use that map to identify what else is needed. Once we identify the specific needs, thanks to the competency map, we are able also to identify which courses the person needs for that activity. Eventually, at the end of the life cycle, the veterinarian will be more proficient in the specific competencies. And I'm handing over now to Leah for the description of those competencies and for those framework.
Thank you, Marcello. So we've built one competency framework completely, the disease control and emergency management framework. And we're also working on a laboratory competency framework, just finalizing that right now. We completely support the idea that these competency frameworks that we have right now are not representative of every competency that a veterinarian would need to be successful. For instance, one that's missing right now is communication, which I'm sure we would all agree is a very important tool for a veterinarian to use. But we've been focusing on those right now that we have courses around within the EuFMD course catalog. So the disease control emergency management framework was built using competencies pulled from a number of sources, including the Get Prepared tool that you may have seen during this session, PCP, Progressive Control Pathway, and the OIE's PVS tools and one-day competency, as well as frameworks from other veterinary services like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. So right now our competency for disease control the framework rather, contains 13 competencies, and each competency has 5 proficiency levels. What level somebody needs to be working at really would depend on their position within the veterinary service. So each proficiency level is linked to some of those tools that we use to create it, to help a nation using it to be able to see what they may need to do to, let's say, move along help support their movement along the progressive control pathway or those sort of things. And then each of these proficiency levels is linked presently right now to some EuFMD courses, which would help develop the competency. But in the future, we look at expanding that to additional courses delivered by other service providers, whether that's FAO, OIE, or the National Veterinary Service itself. So all this supports capacity building in the identification of training needs, but also measuring progress as we move along. So I'm going to leave the slideshow at this point and move over to actually a demonstration of some of those tools. And the first thing we're going to have a look at is the learner interface as it sits right now. And that interface still exists right now within the Moodle platform. It's our learning management system at EuFMD. And those of you who have seen our presentation before will be familiar with this. So a learner going into the EuFMD platform would see on their profile page badges that they've already received, indicating what their current proficiency level is. So this learner has transboundary animal disease profiling level 2 and application of epidemiological principles level 2. The assumption is if somebody has level 2, then they have the competencies for the lower levels. So this person would be competent, obviously, at level 1 and also at level 2. We can see they're actively involved in 2 programs, so they do have a gap that they're working towards. And we see that this person happens to be a field veterinarian who works for the Veterinary Service of the Holy See. So that's sort of a snapshot picture of what a learner right now sees on their profile page. But what we'd really like to focus on today is the new interface for the country manager position. We've shown in previous demonstrations some of the way a country manager would intersect with our Moodle platform, but we've developed another interface that's a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit easier to use. And so I'm going to show that to you right now. That's our actual Tom. So we're going to look at this from the point of view of a country manager, which would be the person with the permission to look at all of the learner's data. So let's just launch this from the beginning. All right. So a country manager would have their own password and be able to log into the system, opening a dashboard page in which they would only be able to see the information for their own country, obviously. So on the top bit of this dashboard page is really the overview section, allowing the country manager to see the number of learners they have, their course enrollments, their course completions, presently over the last year. And if this country is involved in EuFMD's training credit system, they would also see a tab allowing them to see what their credit limits are right now, what they've used and what is available to them. And they can see courses by status, some high-level snapshots, and even get a picture of what their staffing levels are to identify any gaps and whether they maybe need to hire more people in a certain position. So those are all integrated with tabs that you can click on, choosing to look at whatever section you like. Our middle section here focuses on the competencies themselves, and you're able to sort the data by different positions and look at the overall competency profiles for different positions. And when you do that, you can sort the competencies and also learner numbers. Any change you make on this left-hand side brings up different data and different information on the right-hand side. So in this case, we're looking at central government veterinarians. We can see all the different competencies that a central government veterinarian needs to have on this side and what their actually required level is. So, you know, in veterinary products, they need to be working at a proficiency level, where animal welfare and biosecurity, the competent level is appropriate for them. And these bar graphs help indicate how well a country is doing at having employees at those competency levels. So we can see they're doing really well here in disease prevention and control, but not particularly as well in risk analysis or biosecurity. And if we want to even break down to this biosecurity level even more so, over on the right-hand side, we can see that 25 people are at that competent level, but 26 of them are at the beginning level, and 16 still are at a very introductory awareness level. So this helps you to see where your gaps might be very quickly and prioritize potentially what gaps you want to address. Perhaps a country's goal might be to move these 16 people at least to the beginner level before moving them on to the competent level. And if you're wondering, you know, what do we mean by biosecurity here? You can learn more about the competency by clicking on this pop-up here. All right, so let us just move that forward. You can see some more of that in action. We've got all 13 competencies here that you can scroll through. That tells us what biosecurity means. If we click on risk analysis, then we can see what risk analysis means. So the final section on the dashboard looks at individual learners. So looking at this, I'm just going to pop us back 5 seconds here. A little bit further, my apologies. So looking at learner 2 here, we're looking at all the data related to a central government veterinarian. We can see that learner 2 has 25% of their competencies at the required level. They're enrolled in 10 courses. They're 17% done, so we get an idea of how their course completion is going. And these bullets turn green when someone reaches the required competency. So it's a nice snapshot of being able to see things that way. All right, and I see someone has their hand up. I'm just gonna leave that until we're finished through this, and then we'll definitely be able to jump back into the video if there's a question you have about a particular area. We're just moving forward, we can change again, sort what set of staff we're looking at. The system can be set up to have just staff within your veterinary service, or ultimately could be expanded to include private veterinarians and get a great picture of the whole system. We can dig deeper into individual learners, which is what has happened now. We've clicked on learner 10, and now we're able to dig a little bit more down into how they are progressing through their training. So if we look at the animal welfare competency, we can see their current level does not match their required level, so there's a gap there. They're enrolled in one course right now, and then we can dig down to each of the levels. They've completed awareness. They haven't done anything in the beginner yet or in the competent. And these courses then would be basically a program that someone would complete to achieve that competency level. Right now, we just have fake data in here right now. So this actual data, these course names, doesn't reflect a program, but it gives you an idea how the system would work. And then a country manager would be able to see whether or not they've enrolled in something and what their progress might be, and then do some follow-up if necessary to see maybe why they aren't progressing in their learning system. For instance, maybe this learner's been very busy doing the biosecurity requirements because they're enrolled in 6 courses there right now. So I'll just show that a little bit more. We've got each of the competencies. We can see where they're at. And the color code system really allows us to get a quick snapshot of where there might be gaps or things to be able to address. Heading back to our main page here, want to just talk briefly about our menu here, which contains a number of coming soon features that we've discussed, that we would like to let you know about. So this will be continually being updated as new functionality is added. So coming soon, we expect country managers to be able to assign current competency levels to their staff. Rather than going in through Moodle as we showed you, there will be a learner side to Tom. You'll be able to see more details of the competency framework. The country manager will be able to assign learners to learning paths, and we will be able to move beyond just EuFMD courses, but to tracking external courses as well. And through all the development of Tom, we will be looking to identify any other features that you feel will be important to your use of the tool. So there's going to be a section where you can leave a suggestion saying, you know, I'd really like to see a snapshot report of this so that we can go ahead and build that sort of thing. So that is the brief introduction to the Tom system. So we'd like to use the 7 minutes we've got left just to answer any questions you may have right now. So we're going to turn it, have a look in our question pod, and also if you will now have the ability to raise your hands and have your audio as well. So the first hand raise I see, it says Constanza. I'm not sure if that really is Constanza, but that was the first one I saw raised. So if that's you, please unmute yourself or ask your question in the chat.
And in meanwhile, I see another hands raised is Herman. So if you want to type your question or to verbalize it while we are speaking.
Hello.
Hola,
can I go ahead with my question? I don't know. There was another question before, but I don't know.
Please go ahead.
Okay. No, it's just one thing. first, thank you for this application that I think it's going to be very, very useful for us, because it's difficult sometimes to track the learning process of all the participants in the courses and everything. So this is going to be a lot easier for us to manage this. And the question is, this application is going to take into account the already courses done by the people in the countries in the last, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 years. Just that is my point.
Absolutely. You know, we're in early stages of piloting it, and we're looking just at doing a small pilot looking at EuFMD courses, but certainly the plan is in the future to be able to use this for courses, or to take in it to recognize training that's been accomplished outside of EuFMD as part of being able to reach a competency. Absolutely, for sure.
Thank you.
Mandura, I saw your hand up. Would you like to go ahead?
Hi, Leah. Did you say my name? Sorry.
I did, yes.
Okay. Your voice broke a little. Yes, my question was, can the training managers see the aggregated performance of their veterinarians or paraveterinarians? Like, can they see that a certain percentage of them have completed X number of courses, and so many of them, like not on an individual level, but more on an organizational level or an institutional level?
Yeah, they certainly can. I'm just going to share my screen again for a second and highlight this particular part. All right, I think my screen is being shared now. So at the very top section here, we've got courses by status. So this gives us a representation that out of all the courses people are registered for, 68% have completed them and 22% are still open.
You want to share? Sorry,
oh, sorry, it's not sharing. My
no
apologies,
yeah,
everybody. Let me try that again. There we go. Sorry, my apologies. So at this top section, we've got courses by status, 78% completed, 22% open. And we can put different, you know, if you're looking for more details, we could put it into this section for sure. Yeah, because all they, you know, it's really just about how we choose to report on the data that we have. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. Thanks. I may have missed this part earlier.
That's all right. It's a lot to take in very quickly.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just taking a look here at the chat. So Roberto asked, will the training be open only to veterinary officials from competent authorities, but also those working in institutions or private veterinarians? And again, that is something we're looking at doing ultimately, having the TMS open and having expanding it really to whoever the veterinary service feels they want to manage. Even an individual veterinarian could be using the system to manage their own training, even if it isn't being reported to anybody at the point. Marcello, do you have anything to add to that? Have I summed that answer up correctly?
No, I believe that this is at this point, it's very comprehensive. I'm just wanting to answer on one last question. We are probably closing in just a couple of minutes, because we are just starting the third day of the general session at the moment. If, but before answering this question in the chat, I want to tell you, if there is if there are other additional question, we are really available, Lee and myself, to have an additional webinar just like this one. And so please type in the chat if you want to have another session again, and we can take the time to answer maybe the questions with a wider time frame. Let's say like this. I see two questions in the chat. One is about possible to considering previous work experience of the learners, and that is a relevant point. Thanks, Goran, for asking, because it's called grandparenting in the technical jargon, and it's quite relevant, and we are looking to enhance, not at this stage, we don't have the framework yet, but we are looking at enhance quality processes that allow to recognize previous experience as proficiency in a specific competency. So someone who hasn't taken a specific course in an area, but is, for example, a recognized expert, should be indicated in the tool as a recognized expert. So it's a very relevant question. And yep.
So one more question just quickly popped up, although if anyone, I see people are leaving to join the general session, so that's great. I'm glad you actually are. So a question is it mandatory to have internet access to follow courses? So some of these courses for sure are online courses, but we would also be having face-to-face courses or courses that occur in your country on here. So it really depends on the course whether internet access would be mandatory. And we're certainly at EuFMD looking for solutions, because we know that is an issue in some countries, to help make that less of a roadblock. So with that, thank you very, very much. Please join the general session. And if you do have further questions and would like us to have another session, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to do that. Marcello?
And thanks a lot, Leah. Thanks everyone who joined this team so far. This is just a small list of the people who contributed. I'm sorry I missed some of them, and this is really